either the 70s or the 60s. So those people, but those people are not
considered ethnically Jewish now.
Okay, but they're not
it's
as
like magic.
So they're more indigenous than Palestinians.
I have a question.
If you convert, if someone is not Jewish converts, you are considered 100%. That's why Judaism is, and Zionism. It's not racist. You could be black.
It is
Asian.
Racist,
anyone that converts is 100% Jewish. Yeah.
If I, as an Asian woman, converted to Judaism, right? I have more of a right to have a citizenship to that land than him? Yes, that's exactly what he's saying.
If you convert to Judaism, you are considered a Jewish person.
I'm more indigenous to the land than
Exactly. Please tell me you got that. He said yes.
Cut the camera. Can you do it?
Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this video. This is the unedited version, but as you can see, this naive Palestinian student is very excited about the fact that he can convert to Judaism and become a Jew and gain citizenship in the state of Israel. And apparently that's racist because anyone of any race has the ability to do that. Anyway, that stupidity aside, there was another video that was made where this same Jewish professor, who did a splendid job, by the way, watch this video to the very end because you're going to see that he uses amazing argumentation to put these people in their place. The problem was that he was in a public forum with, literally, he was the only one, basically it was him against everybody else. And you can see they treat him terribly in the video. They're not nice to him. And he really does an amazing job of keeping his composure. So by the end of the video, we'll see where they cut out. This is the edited version, the fiery debate between Zionist professor and Palestinian protester. This was recorded by clearly a pro-Palestinian cameraman who cut out the best part of his argument. And you can see that the pro-Palestinians were clearly scared to have that broadcasted. So let's watch through this video.
Fine, and now you see why Zionism is a racist ideology. It's a religion, and our religion says that if you convert, you are part of the Jewish people.
You said both are right, but that doesn't make her indigenous to the land.
That's a settler mindset.
Their colonist mindset. Well, what colony did we represent? To be a colonist, you have to represent.
Because Jews are claiming to be indigenous to the kingdom of Israel. But what I'm telling you is over the course of 3,000 years, a lot of them, Ashkenazi and more Ashkenazi than Mizrahi, but mostly Ashkenazi Jews were converts. They were converts. They converted in Georgia. They converted.
Jews converted. I am telling you that is historically wrong.
Compared to other religions.
So once again, the stupidity of these idiots, right? This pro-Palestinian naive college student thinks that he knows history better than the Jews themselves about what we went through. Why in the world do people, this is what boggles my mind, right? We have always claimed to be Jews throughout the past 2,000 years, right? There is no debating this, right? And it just gets absolutely absurd when you see people making up a history that we never claimed. We never claimed that we were a bunch of converts, that the majority of our people, because we were exiled to Europe, we're a bunch of converts. That has never been a part of what our history has said. And if you're going to come from the outside and point fingers at us saying otherwise, then who are you to tell us that we aren't really Jews? It's absurd, right? Also, Hitler didn't consider us to be European white genetically. That was the whole point of the Holocaust, right? That Jews were not a part of the white people. But now all of a sudden, we're white? No. Clearly, history, even in recent history, people were able to recognize this. Even our worst enemies. So how dare you try and flip our history upside down and claim that we're white Europeans when that's never been who we have been. Absurdity.
Yes.
Very few. Look at today.
Yeah, but
You're gonna find
yeah, but now over the course of 3,000 years, my dude.
I'll give you an example. Like Jews for Jesus. You find very few of them, right? very, very. There are some, of course, there are some, but very few. Judaism has a very strong connection going back thousands of years. Yeah, we get a few conversions here and there. Some people become Buddhist, some people become Christian, whatever, but it's very, very, very few.
Okay.
All right, and you know, you're talking about DNA tests. Yeah, they've actually.
Which I think is stupid. I don't think that, like, we shouldn't believe in eugenics or like ethnic societies.
So look at the hypocrisy here. Here he's like, oh, we shouldn't believe in eugenics or ethnic societies, but all the while he's claiming that he has more indigeneity based on his genetics, right? It's the most hypocritical argument in the world when you see these Palestinians going around claiming to be Canaanites or... They never had that tradition. That's why I can confidently say when Jews say that we are Jews throughout our history, we have always claimed to be Jews. We have the paper trail, the Talmud. We've always claimed to be Jews, whether we be Ashkenazi, Sephardi, or Mizrahi, whatever. Doesn't matter where we were exiled to. But when it comes to Palestinians, they don't have an identity that's consistent. Most of them are Muslims, so they would, logically speaking, they would be Arab. But, because they're, some of them had Jordanian and, Syrian and all these different neighboring countries, Lebanese, whatever, Egyptian. And you have Palestinians who actually have that sort of lineage. Like, that's definitive. Even, Hamas leaders have said these types of things, right? I did a video before about that. So you're claiming that you're more indigenous when in reality, to the land of Israel that you claim is Palestine, but you don't even have a consistent narrative of who you are. You just want to claim to be Canaanites because you know that biblically they pre-existed that, even though there's no historical evidence that there was any cohesive group of Canaanites over the past 3,000 years that has existed to this day. You can make the claim, but it doesn't make you a Canaanite. It doesn't make you a Philistine. It might make you an Arab because that's more than likely what you are. So quit with the absurdity that you know exactly who the Jewish people are and you know exactly our history and you know that we are a bunch of converts, because that's nonsense. Jews have always been Jews.
The weeds here. Like, the simple thing is, I'm a Zionist because I believe.
You know what? I believe you're not a Zionist.
I'm 100% a Zionist.
I believe you're not a Zionist.
Zionism is just the idea that I have a right to live safely and securely in my ancient homeland of Israel.
Do Palestinians?
So, once again, they're challenging the idea of Zionism and claiming that it doesn't have to do with Judaism. We've done this over and over again, right? So said the Lord of hosts, I'm jealous for Zion, right? With great jealousy. This is Zechariah chapter 8, right? So said the Lord, I will return to Zion. I will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Jerusalem and Zion are virtually synonymous, so don't tell me it was made up by Theodore Herzl. This is a biblical concept, right? The head of Jews for Judaism, his name is Ben Zion, son of Zion Kravitz. This name didn't just pop up in the 20th century. It's been with us prior to Theodore Herzl. It's absurd for these people to rewrite our history and claim that Zionism was just made up by Theodore Herzl, a secular Jew. Zionism has always been, Zion has always been a yearning, right, to go back to Jerusalem to effectively do what we did before Islam and Christianity came on the scene, when we lived in Israel, in Judea, right? When we had our own autonomous government system. What don't people understand about this? It's absurd. Anyway, I wanted to discuss the DNA thing a little bit more. I made a video here where I discussed the Y chromosomal error. Let's listen to this real quick.
Absolute nonsense he just described. So please let me speak on this, all right? So here's what it is. If you look at what Jews have claimed, right? There's a tribe of Levi, right? He was the third son of Jacob, also known as Israel. So here's the deal with him. The tribe of Levi is composed of a couple of very famous Israelites. One happens to be Moses, one happens to be Aaron. Aaron is particularly interesting because he is the priest. He was the first high priest according to the Torah. Now, Jews with the last name of Cohen, which includes Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Mizrahi, all the major communities, right, have a common Cohen last name, right? You will find that common amongst all of the major groups of Jews in the diaspora, whether they were exiled to Europe, Africa, Asia, wherever, right? So in that field of people who have claimed this Cohen lineage, they have done genetic studies and they have found that there is a common Y haplotype called Y chromosomal Aaron, which is common among them, which proves that there is indigeneity to the Jews who have claimed to, and because we're the only group of people who have claimed to preserve this priestly lineage. And what, just by chance they have a common genetic marker patrilineally between them? That's how I can debunk that myth straight out the bat, right?
So now I'm gonna go,
that
guys.
Jews are just a bunch of Khazar converts and a bunch of European whites, complete hogwash.
Watch that video if you want more information on that. I go into the genetics more in detail. A Zionist Jew schools Palestinian Muslims on the Quran, or Israel and the Hebrew Bible live on TikTok. This was part 2 of the video. So give that a watch if you want a more in-depth understanding of that.
Palestinians have the right to live on their land. Do you believe?
Their
Okay,
ancient
do you
homelands?
believe that Palestinians
No, but
are
you don't
indigenous?
believe that.
Or do you believe that we're Arab invaders, that we came from Jordan and Egypt, and we could go to any of the 57
believe
Arab
that we're
countries in the
Arab
world?
I don't think
So he knows the narrative, right? It's funny because this is a Palestinian and he understands the idea that there are Muslim countries that are overwhelmingly, like there is no Jewish state, right? There is none except for Israel. And he knows, and he's like saying this in this, sarcastic way, but deep down he knows. He looks like a hypocrite if he's trying to claim that he cares about religious equality in any way, shape, or form, in any sense of justice.
they're indigenous. I think
There we go.
indigenous means who was there first.
Okay.
The Jews were there first.
No, the Canaanites were there first.
Right, there are
Look at that smug. Oh my goodness. Look at that. No, the Canaanites were there. Yeah, you're not a Canaanite, right? The Canaanites don't exist as a civilization, right? If you had somebody who had Canaanite lineage, who kept the Canaanite pagan customs over the past 3,000 years, then maybe you'd have an argument. But the fact is that there is no semblance of Canaanite culture that exists. Palestinians do not, they never made that claim until all of a sudden they decided that they wanted to be Canaanites because of the fact that Jews decided to go back to the land that we used to live in over 2,000 years ago, and we've always had a presence in the land, right? We had sovereignty over 2,000 years ago, but we've always had a presence since then. We've always had a true yearning to go back, and we've always maintained somewhat of a presence there. So that's why we have an indigenous claim to the land, no matter where we were exiled to, because we kept what the Torah is supposed to, it says that we're going to be exiled. That's a part of our religion. That is why Zionism is a part of our religion, because it says when we are exiled, we are supposed to yearn to go back. That's a part of it. Back to Jerusalem. That's literally in our Bible. I showed it again and again in Zechariah. In Zechariah chapter 12, of course, where it says that the Jews will be in Jerusalem prior to the coming of the Messiah, as opposed to what, some people will tell you that Jews can't go back to Israel before the Messiah comes. Complete hogwash. You can read this in Zechariah chapter 12. I've said it over and over again, right? It says that all the nations of the world are going to attack Jerusalem and that the Jews are going to be saved, right? The house of Judah will be saved first, and then the Messiah will be revealed in the house of David, right? So, yes, Zionism is core to our religious beliefs, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
no Canaanites.
Yeah, there are. There's no. How do you know that?
You're a professor.
How do you know
like
that?
a Canaanite?
You're a professor, and you're an idiot student who has no idea about what a Canaanite is. If he's claiming he's a Canaanite, then he has to have some sort of paper trail to demonstrate what Canaanite culture is. That's what Jews have. We have the paper trail. We have the Talmud. We all have virtually the same prayers in Hebrew throughout the entirety of the diaspora. The Talmud is in Aramaic, the same language that, I'll just use Jesus because everybody knows who he is. He spoke Aramaic. That's what the Talmud is written in. That's what we have been keeping for the past, all throughout the diaspora. You don't have anything close to that if you want to claim Canaanite lineage. It's absurd.
Canaanite lately?
Yeah.
An Amalekite? Like,
Yes.
They won't identify as Canaanites, but the Canaan people exist.
My point is,
But you're going back.
They don't identify as Canaanites, but the Canaan people existed in the past. He just disproved his own point. Exactly. That's exactly what this professor is trying to say.
Jewish people,
you know what? My point is literally the Torah. The Torah says that when the children of Israel, when Ben Yisrael went to the land, who did they fight to get the land? They fought the Canaanites.
I would say Palestinians also have a claim on the land. I'm not saying that they don't have any claim. I'm not saying that no, they should all be thrown out.
So then you're not
no,
a
that's not what I'm
Zionist.
saying. Of course I'm a Zionist.
But you're not, though. Then that's not a Jewish thing, like how you think.
I believe in a two.
See, they're trying to define what Zionism is for him. They don't know what it is. They just want to paint it as a racist ideology. Even when they're confronted with the fact that it's not, they'll still claim it's racist, like you saw earlier when he said that anyone here in this crowd of Jewish haters could convert to Judaism. Of course, now all of a sudden that's a racist idea, which obviously makes absolutely no sense, because anybody of any race can become a Jew.
Two-state solution. I want to share the land.
It doesn't exist.
Sadly,
You can't kill my
people,
entire family and then expect me to live peacefully with you
Your
side
family?
by side.
Where are you from?
None of your business. They're my family.
Okay,
So
your
what's your
family?
problem?
Where are
What's
you
your
from? Where are
what's
you
your problem?
from?
They're my family. What's your
You're
problem?
from Palestine?
Are you from Israel?
Are you from Palestine?
Are you from Israel?
Yes, I'm indigenous to Israel.
I'm indigenous to Palestine.
My point is, we should have a two-state.
And you can see the rhetoric of these, these girls and these guys here, and like even when they are put in their place, the best they can do is insult this guy. This guy is really holding his ground well. I'm really impressed with the way that he is holding himself. May we all be able to keep this calm when these types of, hate mongers are standing around us and really throwing insults at us. Because this is what we need. We need more people like this on the front lines.
We should have a two-state solution where people can live harmoniously and in peace, where Jewish children are not getting killed and Palestinian children are not getting killed.
I'm gonna break his whole argument with one sentence.
So whether or not you agree with his proposal, you'll see in contrast to what these people want, that's what I want you to focus on. What do the other side want, right? And you'll see how unreasonable it is, and how in contrast that they basically want something that is not fair in any way, shape, or form. At least he's proposing something that in theory is fair, right? Whether or not you agree that it's practical, that's a different story. But watch what their answer to this is.
If you're not in favor of a two-state solution, then you're not in favor of peace.
I agree with you. That state existed. It was called Palestine.
There was no such state.
That's true.
There was no
It was such
Okay,
state.
no, that is not a lie. Okay, go read. Did you read Rashidi Khalidi?
Why did Jews get massacred in 1929?
In the Hebron massacre?
Why?
You're right. There was.
Why were
I
they
am
massacred?
not denying for a second that there was attacks on Jews during the mandate of Palestine. I'm not denying that for a second.
If we want to have
But we have to look at it.
So he's admitting that there were horrible attacks of, Palestinians on Jews, right? That Palestinians attacked Jews in the Hebron massacre. Like, he has to at least acknowledge that. So at least you can give him a little bit of credit that he's not trying to erase the history there. So, fine.
Holistically,
Okay, so
you're looking at one point in time.
Why can't we just take a map, draw a line down, you get on one side, you get on the other, have peace?
Is that what they're doing?
Listen.
Because if you don't, do you accept the right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state?
No. Now can I answer why?
That is
Boom! This is where the hypocrisy is on full force for everyone to see. These Palestinian protesters are basically saying that they do not care about the Jews having any sort of sovereignty anywhere in the world, especially in our own holy land of Israel, which predated Muhammad by over 1,000 years. And this professor lets that be known. And you'll see later he uses that argument. And Baruch Hashem, he does, because not enough people are saying it. But let's see what these hypocritical pro-Palestinians have to say about their one-state solution, where Jews live as second-class apartheid dhimmi citizens under Muslim Sharia law. Check it out.
Can I answer why? Can I answer why? Because I
don't
because
believe in
look, when you
Narnia.
look at it from my framework, right, as someone
See, look at these girls laughing. Oh, Narnia. I don't believe in Narnia. See, like, it's like a witch rhetoric. Like, goodness sakes. Like, you see the complete disrespect that they have for this individual. And it's repugnant, right? This Jewish man is just trying to come up with a fair solution, whether or not you find it's practical, whatever. But they're laughing at him, trying to come up with a solution for peace. And that just kind of shows the type of people you're dealing with. And how, is this about anti-Zionism, or is this about something that is, the elephant in the room, that Zionists are Jews? The majority of us, see this in this way, that Israel is the homeland to the Jews that pre-existed Muhammad by 1,000 years. Judea, whatever you want to call it, but an autonomous, Jewish entity, right, that existed. So, entity, oh no, it's a Zionist entity. But whatever you want to call it, it was a sovereign state, whatever language you want to use. The golden age of the Jews, I would say, was when the temple stood in Jerusalem and we had our own government. But, of course, that's not what this individual is going to say.
We read about it in one book.
that believes in the textbook definition of Zionism, which is Theodore Herzl has the right to define that term, since he's the one that coined that term.
He's not the one that coined that term. Stop. Like, I'm watching a video and I want to pull my hair out here. I've said it 1,000 times. Stop saying Theodore Herzl invented Zionism, right? You want to keep saying this like you have some sort of, like, you might as well say that Jesus invented Buddhism, right? Like, there's nothing here that you have by saying that Theodore Herzl invented Zionism, when Zion is all over the Hebrew Bible. King David spoke about it in the Psalms. Zechariah speaks about it here. Isaiah speaks about it in Isaiah chapter 2. It is all over our Hebrew Bible. And the more you try to say that it's not, the more vocal we need to be to talk about what Zion actually is. It shall be at the end of days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be firmly established on top of the mountains, and it will be raised above the hills, and all nations will stream to it, and many people shall go, and they shall say, come, let us go up to the Lord's mount, to the house of the God of Jacob, and let him teach us of his ways, and let us go in his paths. So Zion shall the Torah come forth, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Out of Zion shall the Torah come forth, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. So once again, virtually synonymous with each other, Zion and Jerusalem. So that's that. Why do you think the state of Israel has Jerusalem as its capital? Was that just a coincidence? There's clearly a religious element here. You can't say that just because Theodore Herzl was a secular individual, that this means that he invented this and it has no religious connections. Because it does. There is a religious connection to Zionism. Stop trying to tell us otherwise.
It is a Jewish supremacist state. I believe in a state, which you said you also believe in too, where Jews, Muslims, and Christians should live equally. And I believe that state existed before Israel existed, and it's called Palestine.
Hold on, but you also said Muslims have a right to their own state. So why do Muslims get to have their own state, but
You didn't
Jews
say
don't?
Palestine has to be a Muslim.
Why do Muslims?
I didn't say that Palestine has to be a Muslim state.
You said Muslims.
He didn't say that Palestine had a Muslim state. Keep that in mind for the rest of the conversation, because he's going to double down on Sharia law, because that's effectively what he wants. He's a Muslim Palestinian, and he's going to go back on that. So keep that in mind.
Muslims have a right to a state.
I believe that
Yes.
Jews have a right
So
to a
then why
state too,
don't
but
we
just
have a
not,
right to a state of our own?
just not ours.
When you say, okay, so here's the thing.
Here's
When
the
we talk
question,
about,
if Muslims
when
have
we,
a right to a state of their own,
Right.
under a caliphate, whatever you want to call
So
it,
do you.
people,
So
why
do
don't
you. But
Jews
why?
have a right to
No,
a
no,
state
no,
of
no,
their
no.
own?
We never
you're right.
said that.
Jews
We never said
and
that.
Muslims have a right to governance.
said
So when I say
don't
that they
touch
have a right to
Palestine.
state, they have a right to governance.
Okay, so then
But you're
When
not Middle Eastern.
Palestine was a sanjuk, and you can look this up, because I don't know, I will buy you a copy of Rashidi Khalidi 100-Year War on Palestine, and you can read that.
So what do you
It
know in
says
the Middle
that
East? You're gonna get a
Palestine was a
sunburn.
sanjuk. It was considered a state as part of the
You're gonna get
Ottoman
the sunburn.
Empire. Jews had their own courts. Muslims had their own courts. Christians had their own courts. So whenever there was problems within the Jewish community, under Islamic law, Jews would get tried in their own courts, and they would have.
Check this out.
not after.
Jews are not equal to Muslim in a Muslim state. Your book says the reason the Jews pay the jizya is to make them belittled.
If I went to the court, for example, me and you, I'm a Muslim and you are Jew, and there is a judge now, that person is a judge and a Muslim judge, for example.
Can a Jew be a judge?
Sorry?
Can a Jew be a judge in one of these courts that's judging on Jews and Muslims? So how is it equal?
Okay, I will say to you, in a Muslim land, the Jew will not know the Quran better than the Muslims.
So why can't you go to the Jewish court and the Jewish rabbis and have the Jews judge the Muslim?
Because there is no...
There is, we call it a
Muslim
Beit
land.
Din. In every single Muslim land where the Jews lived, they had courts. Why can't a Jewish court judge for a Muslim if we're equal?
Because we don't believe that the Jews have the full...
Because we're not equal. You cannot say that we're equal when your courts can judge for me, but my courts can't judge for you. That is not equality. That is apartheid.
Boom! So when this individual presents Sharia law as this magical equal land, he's really presenting apartheid. Jews will live as second-class citizens in the Muslim land of Palestine. And that is exactly why a one-state solution where Hamas or whoever takes over in a Muslim quote-unquote democracy, what they really want is Sharia law. And you'll see this individual doubles down on that. He wants that. He says, I didn't say it had to be a Muslim state. Yeah, he does. He knows that's what it's going to end up being under the guise of democracy. It's going to be another Sharia law state, just like all the other Muslim countries. And that's why the Muslim world is mad that Israel exists. Right? Because they don't want Jews. It's not about Zionism. It's that they don't want Jews having any sort of autonomy in Israel, in our own holy land, because they want to keep it all a bunch of, a Muslim, monopoly on the entire Middle East. Too bad. Jews were there first. You're not Canaanites. You're not Philistines. You're whatever you want to call yourselves today. If you want to call yourselves Palestinians, that's fine. That does not mean that you predated the Jews living in the land of Israel, because you do not have a Canaanite history that you can trace back. The Jews do have a history that we can trace back. No matter how many times you try to call us white, Hitler knew we weren't white. Hitler knew who we were. So accept the fact that we know who we are better than you think you know who we are. And accept the fact that we're Jews and that we are simply going back to our holy land of Israel, which is in line with our religious values of Zionism.
They would have their own Torahs and they would have their own rabbis that would deal with all of that stuff. So when I say I believe in the Sharia, I'm not ashamed of it. Another bullshit talking point.
I have to
right. What's
no, I don't want to be under Sharia law. You know why? Because I'm not Muslim. You can be under Sharia law, that's fine.
Okay,
I don't want to be under Sharia law because I'm not a Muslim. So again, if you believe that Muslims have a right to their own governance, to a land where they can govern themselves, then you should extend that same courtesy.
So do you.
I said that's Sharia. That's what Sharia is.
No, it is. I don't want to live under.
Look at him doubling down on it. That's Sharia. That's what Sharia is. Like, come on, man. Like, don't pretend like you have the moral high ground here because you think that Sharia law, like, this is absurd, right? If you claim that Sharia law was so much better, then why did all the Jews leave the Muslim countries? Because we were being oppressed, not because we loved living in the land of Iraq when the Farhud happened, right? When this pogrom against the Jews during the Holocaust by Muslims in the Arab country of the Muslim Arab country of Iraq happened prior to the state of Israel being formed in 1941. So you can't blame it on Zionism and then justify collective punishment against all the Jews and all the Arab lands, all the Muslim lands, because Zionism exists in the latest state of 1948, right? It's absurd. Anyway.
Sharia.
But he just
You said you want to live under Jewish
I
law.
don't want to live under Sharia law. And
Bro.
you're trying to force it on me.
Boss.
Are you trying to force me to live under Sharia law?
No!
Wait,
You're in America, honey.
I don't want to live under Sharia
You
law.
define
you don't want to live under
Sharia,
Jewish
this is
law.
what I
I
want to
don't
live
want to live
under.
under Sharia law.
But he just
So,
told
but
me
I don't
what
want
you
to pay the jizya.
Okay.
I'm not paying the jizya.
Okay.
I'm not being a dhimmi. I'm going to be a proud
The
Jew
jizya.
in the land of my forefathers.
Yeah, I guess it's funny that he's... I mean, see, you can see the, extreme hate, the extreme disdain and contempt that these people have for Jews, it's absurd, right? And that's why I'm very impressed with the way this guy is able to, keep it together while they're, belittling him for simply pointing out their hypocrisy that they want an apartheid state of Palestine so Jews can live as second-class citizens, right? It's absurd.
So you'd rather pay more taxes than less taxes?
Abraham, the land of Isaac, and the land of Jacob.
Okay.
That's where I'm going to be a proud Jew in the land of my forefathers.
The land of Abraham, right?
I am not going to pay
the father of the Arabs?
I am not going to be a dhimmi. I am not going to have to give the right of way to a Muslim.
I
am sorry that you were told that. That is not what Sharia is. That is not what Sharia is. But you don't even know what Sharia is.
Or you don't even know what Sharia is. Yeah, you don't even know what a Jew is. You're trying to claim that Jews are a bunch of converts when in reality Hitler knew he knew that we were Jews. Why are you like you see the hypocrisy compounded again and again and again and again. And now he's doubling down on this, claiming, "Oh, I didn't say that Israel had to be ruled by Muslims." And now he's like justifying every single part of Sharia law because he knows that's what Palestinians want. You think Hamas, the Islamist organization, doesn't want Sharia law? Seriously? Even the PLL, even the more Parav, Fatah, they're all Muslims. They all want Sharia law. Let's not pretend like they don't. Look at the elephant in the room, stare it in the eyes, and recognize it for what it is. Palestinians want Sharia law. The majority of Palestinians are Muslims. I don't care if there's a few Christians sprinkled in. They don't have a theocratic voice in the fact there is no Christian caliphate that's going to attempt to, create this sort of quote-unquote free Palestine movement. They don't exist. It's all Muslims that are trying to do these terrorist attacks on Israel to try and gain whatever sort of what they're trying to get. But ultimately what they want is the destruction of Israel. Ghazi Hamad has said this over and over and over again, right? They double down on this. They don't want Jews to have any sort of governing system. Whether or not you think the two-state is viable or practical, that's not what they want. They want to destroy the government of Israel. There's no question there. This kid here especially.
I think Muslims should have a right to their own governance in a Muslim land, but you're not extending to the Jewish people that same right.
But that is literally what Sharia is.
And I don't want to live under Sharia.
But you
Jewish law is not Sharia. Jewish
Sharia.
law is the halakha.
I agree.
Oh wow, Jews want one country in the world where we can have some sort of autonomy, right? In the land that predates Muhammad by over 1,000 years. Oh wow, that's so horrible. Why would you want that? Why would you want that when there's over 50 Muslim countries that have Sharia law? Why did the Jews leave the Muslim countries if Sharia law was so wonderful? You can ask these questions again and again and again, but somehow these people are too idiotic to understand the basic principle. Jews left these Muslim countries because Sharia law was oppressive to them. I don't care if Europe was worse. You don't get a consolation prize because your apartheid was slightly better than Europe's massacre of Jews, right? It's still apartheid. Jews want autonomy in our own holy land of Israel. And you'll see he uses the same argument that I use about Saudi Arabia.
Jewish law is the halakha, right? Halakha
that is how Jews were allowed to govern themselves under the Sharia.
Allowed? I don't want to be allowed.
So you don't want?
I want to stand. I want to stand up as a proud Jew in my own land,
Then sit
under
down.
my own laws. I don't want to be given permission by Sharia law to do this or do that. No.
Yeah, so I made a quick video about the... Check it out.
Speaking of apartheid, the Jews living in Muslim countries prior to the birth of the State of Israel in 1948 are all too familiar with what an apartheid system looks like. Since many of the laws in Muslim countries are heavily influenced by Sharia law, the Muslim legal system described in the Muslim holy book of the Quran, the Jews experienced what it felt like to live as second-class citizens under Muslim rule. Jews and Christians were known as dhimmis, where Jews and Christians had restricted rights to practice their religions and even had to pay a discriminatory tax in a humiliating fashion according to the Quran.
Right. So, just a second. Getting back to the video.
I want to live proudly under my own land, on my own 2 feet, in the land of my forefathers. Just like a Muslim should be able to do the same in Pakistan or whatever Muslim country you want to live in, like Saudi Arabia, Egypt. You have 20.
Yeah, see, of course they're laughing about whatever, but he's explaining, look at all these Muslim countries that you have Sharia law in.
Something Muslim countries in the Middle East where you can do that. We have a tiny little country the size of New Jersey. The size of New Jersey, this tiny, small country the size of New Jersey, where the Jews say we don't want to live under Sharia law. We don't want to live not under Christian law. We don't want to live under Hindu law. We don't want to live under atheists. We want to do our own thing. We want to live under Jewish law. And you guys should have that same right in Muslim land. So, but when you say I don't recognize the right of
Muslim lands, like, come on, like, this guy is presenting an amazing argument to point out their hypocrisy, and all they can do is go Muslim lands because your Muslim lands do apartheid on their citizens, and that's why everybody left that aren't Muslim, right? The majority of people. Oh, here's some Jews in Morocco. Oh, like, come on, like, you're going to look at the exception and, like, of course they're going to do that, right? The Jews left because they were not living in good conditions in Muslim countries. They went to Israel. It's that simple. Because they wanted a better life in our own holy land of Israel that pre-existed Muhammad by over 1,000 years. I'm going to say it until the day I die.
Israel to exist as a Jewish state, you're not extending to the Jewish people, to my people, the same courtesy that I'm extending to you. I want you to live under your traditions, and under your customs, and under Sharia, whatever you do, praying 5 times a day, all of that, fine. And I want you to let me do my own thing as a Jewish person.
Right, so that argument is respectable, but I also want to...
See, this kid doesn't have an answer. When you actually give a platform for a rational Jew like this individual, well-deserved drink, Professor, they don't have anything to say to it. Oh, that's respectable. So, Baruch Hashem, look, I can give him a little bit of credit, this pro-Palestinian guy, for acknowledging that this is a respectable argument that he really doesn't have an answer for. You'll see, he's just going to straw man and not really address this.
It's a compelling argument, but I want to bring up something that you brought up before. You used the word dhimmi. Now, what's ironic is, and
I'm just gonna say, I gotta go in 5 minutes because my meter is up. I'm not running away. I would love to continue this sometime.
Right, we should have had this event 2 hours ago when you guys invited a whole IDF soldier on campus.
I think this has actually been constructive and productive. Okay. I hope people would agree with that.
So a lot of Zionist propagandists bring up the idea of I don't want to be a dhimmi, I don't want to be a dhimmi. So here's the ironic thing about that.
Yeah, I don't want to be a dhimmi. Here's the ironic thing about that. So the argument that he's going to do is he's going to say that, according to some, I've heard this on a TikTok where they bring this up, saying that what's his name, Muhammad Hijab does this. Oh, you pay less than the zakat. The jizya is actually half of the money that you would pay to the zakat. Okay, who cares? I'm still paying money to a Muslim government that doesn't care about my interests, right? You're paying a separate tax for that, the jizya. Like, of course, if you lived in a Jewish country and you're paying toward the government that's actually in your interest, in your best interest, of course you're going to be okay paying taxes toward that. But when you're living subserviently under a Muslim government that is not under, your religious belief system, and you're paying money to it, I don't care how much money it is, it's not a favorable thing to do. It's just not. It's apartheid. Because if you don't pay that tax, there are severe consequences that basically the whole point of it is so that they can try to convert you by force if you don't pay the tax, right? Which often could result in death. So that's historically how it's been used, but he's going to try to straw man and, double down on this, that it's such a great, wonderful idea. Instead of the other parts of apartheid that occur with Sharia law. So they always just hyper focus on the jizya to like try and explain, oh, it's so good, so great, you get to pay money to Muslim caliphates, so wonderful, it's less than what Muslims have to pay, so wonderful. Anyway, we'll listen to his drivel, but just for the sake of completion.
The dhimmi tax, if you actually go back to the time of the Ottoman Empire, was actually half of the zakat that Muslims are required to pay every single year. So you seem to be suggesting that for some reason Jews were like second-class citizens under the Ottoman Empire or under the Muslim caliphs. But if we're gonna go down that route, I guess Muslims were twice as discriminated against because they had to pay twice more than what Jews had to pay.
It's not just about...
And by the
once again, they're paying toward a governmental system that they believe in, right? Jews don't care about whether or not you maintain your mosque or like these types of things that are irrelevant to Judaism, right? We're not interested in paying for the gold and silver plaque on your mosque. Like, that's basically what your jizya is going to, like it's not like, do you think Muslims want to pay a tax toward the Holy Temple in Jerusalem? Right? Like, that's what he's effectively saying, right? Like that, toward a synagogue or whatever. Like, either way, like, you're not taking a moral high ground by claiming that under Sharia law it's any better than any other system. If the governmental populace that isn't of your religious faith is paying a tax toward a belief system government that you don't believe in, you're still a second-class citizen. It doesn't make it better. That's the issue. He's not providing a solution that gets rid of what he thinks is apartheid in Israel. He's simply creating a different apartheid system by his own definition of apartheid that is even more discriminatory against Jews. That's what he's doing.
By the way, so let me just finish my point. The way that the dhimmi tax worked and the reason why Jews had to pay taxes the same way that you pay taxes in the United States, which I don't see you complaining about that, but that's a whole other point. The reason why Jews and Christians had to pay taxes...
Jews... Everybody complains about taxes, but anyway, whatever.
In Muslim lands was because Jews did not have to be enlisted to fight Muslim wars. Christians did not have to be enlisted to fight Muslim wars. It was Muslims that had to fight those wars. And by the way, the dhimmi tax was basically used by the governance throughout the Ottoman Empire and throughout the caliphs and redistributed back into the Jewish communities, back into the Christian communities over time. And that's something that I think Jewish students need to look into. And that's why a lot of actually religious Jewish students spit on the whole ideology of Zionism, because when you look into Jewish history, times at when Jewish history was the greatest was in Baghdad. Times that Jewish history was...
Yes, during the Farhud of 1941, where Jews were massacred during the Holocaust in Baghdad. I don't remember if it was specifically Baghdad, but I wouldn't be surprised. It was the Farhud in Iraq, right? So, yeah, golden age of the Jews, when we were being massacred in Iraq. 1941, prior to the state of Israel.
Was the greatest, was in Jerusalem. Guess what? When they were under control of Muslim caliphs. Now, I'm not saying I am not saying that Jews do not have the right to govern themselves.
You are, though, because you're saying that in our holy land of Israel, we can't have autonomy. And you're saying that we should be thankful to you, even though the Prophet Muhammad kicked the Jews out of Medina when we were living there. And I've said this in other videos before, right? Here's the verse here in the Quran. He who is the first to assault drove forth, he who is the first, this is Al-Hashir 59, verse 2. It says, he who is the first assault drove forth the people of the book, which refers to the Jews that believed from their homes at the first gathering of the forces. You did not believe what they would leave, while they too thought that their fortresses would defend them against Allah. Allah came upon them whence they did not even imagine, casting terror into their hearts, that they destroyed their homes. They destroyed the Jewish homes by their own hands, and their destruction also caused by the hands of the believers, by the Muslims, so that they learn a lesson from this. You who have perceived their eyes. This is from their own Quran. So it's justifying collective punishment against the Jews, right? Here's the tafsir on the verse. And it talks about the Jews who, right? It says that it talks about the al-Hashir. It's basically, this is referring to this war called the Battle of Khaybar, where Muhammad and Muslims basically kicked the Jews out of Medina, destroyed our homes, and collected punishment. So you can use that one as a, this is how the religion of Islam started, with the plundering of Jewish homes, not even in Israel, but, because Jews were living in Medina prior to the advent of Islam, right? Clearly according to their own Quran. So even in Medina, they were kicking us out of our homes and made that into the holy city of Medina for Islam, where Jews are barred from living to this very day. So who's the real colonizer? Who's the real, tale as old as time, right? Ridiculous. And then he's going to go on and talk about how great Muslim governor, Al-Khattab or whatever, how he was so great and he let all the Jews back into Israel. That was his first decree. Yeah, after Muhammad kicked the Jews out of Medina, right? Is that really so great, right? Like, we're supposed to, be so thankful that Muhammad kicked us out of our homelands just so that you could, that we're supposed to cower down to you after you make a mosque on top of our holy temple site? Please.
The reason why I believe in the Sharia as a Muslim, right now you're getting into religious beliefs, is because the Sharia says that you let whatever religion people believe in, they are allowed to govern themselves in that way. That is what was allowed in the Sharia. Now you said, I don't want to be governed under the Sharia.
You cannot force somebody to
That's a topic.
That's a topic that I don't want to get into, because that's exactly what I'm trying to say with the state of Palestine. It's going to force you Jews to live as demi-Sharia apartheid citizens. But I don't want to get into that right now because it wouldn't look good. So let's not talk about that, because the Palestinians really just don't like Jews and they want to basically make it just like any other Muslim country where Jews are second-class demi-apartheid citizens, to put them in their place. You're not for equality, you are for apartheid against Jews. This proves it.
Dhimmi, you brought up Dhimmi. I want to respond. Again, number one, I don't want to be allowed. I'm a man. I don't want to be allowed.
Palestinians don't want to be allowed to live in Israel. Arab Israelis don't want to be allowed to live in Israel.
Palestinians don't want to
It's
be
not a
allowed
privilege when someone...
Let's talk about Dhimmi. A Dhimmi is not just about paying a tax. It's about being a second-class citizen. A Dhimmi in the Quran, it says that you will pay the jizya.
No, it doesn't. Sharia is not in the Quran.
It says,
I read the
Daniel Haqiq too could have educated him, but he didn't go to the event.
The Quran says you will pay the jizya and feel subdued. You will be subdued.
So now he's like playing semantic games with the idea of like, it's not in the Quran. Well, why do you think he's doubling down on it? Because it's a Muslim concept. Whether it's in a hadith or a tafsir, it doesn't matter. The point is that it's a Muslim belief system that governs the majority of Muslim countries in a very influential way. And that is what the Muslim world wants. Don't pretend like they don't.
I wish I had a Quran on me. I have one at home.
Don't say something.
No, it is. You will
Ya
feel
Allah, please make sure that this man's SD card doesn't get interrupted.
Please, so that we can expose the falsehood within the context of your hypocrisy, right? Baruch Hashem, this video exists because it exposes the hypocrisy of the pro-Palestinians who claim they want equality, but really they want Sharia law. And this man is clearly doubling down on this and trying to say how great it is.
All right, wait, let's bring up the Quran. Because it says you will be a Dhimmi, you will pay the tax and feel subdued. All right, so we're going to bring up the Quran. Then I got to go.
Okay.
We're going to bring up...
Okay. Let's grant him that point. Let's grant him the point.
Now he's backing up. He's like, let's grant him that point, because he knows he's trapped, right? He knows there's discussion regarding the jizya tax and how it's, basically saying that the people who pay it are supposed to be humiliated, right? If you look up how the jizya tax was distributed in the past, it was done in a humiliating fashion. That was the whole point, was to humiliate the people having to pay the tax. It literally says that in the Quran. There's no way around that. So he has to be like, let's grant him that. My taqiyya has failed. I need to actually come clean.
Grant him the point. You're paying literally half of what Muslims pay in their own lands.
You will feel
wow, I would love to be able to pay toward prettying up your mosque. That's what I would love to pay taxes for. Like, I don't care what you want to justify it as. You're paying taxes for Muslim governments. You don't want to live in a Muslim government if you're a Jew. You just don't. You want to live in a Jewish state, Israel, which pre-existed Muhammad by over 1,000 years. Goodness sakes.
Dude, you will pay the jizya and be under submission.
So then Muslims are twice as subdued because they pay double the taxes of what
No, because you actually care about Muslim lands, because you actually want Muslim autonomy. That's great. You can want that in your own countries, but don't put it on Jews in Israel. And that's what you want for your one state solution of Palestine, is you want a Sharia law apartheid state against Jews and Christians. He's admitting it right here.
Jews had to pay.
I don't want to be
Such a dumb argument,
subdued.
bro.
I don't want to be subdued.
You're subdued in America.
You pay taxes now.
30%.
And you said that you will be the last
Tim Rosen. I have
Yo, I have a question. I'm trying to look up this verse.
Tim Rosen. Yeah.
He's a law and ethics professor.
Bro, I pray that this like goes online, like on Twitter, and just blows up.
Yeah, me
on
too.
both of our behalves,
Me too.
because I am someone that looks for the truth. You know, I'm not someone that's gonna sit.
So here's the funny thing. By the end of this video, we're going to get to a point where he cuts out a really important part at the end. This was the video that was edited. This was by the Pro-Palestinian guy. This video is a little bit more, this is the whole thing. But yeah, you can see that a lot of people don't want to hear what this professor has to say, because he's making really good arguments. He happens to be accosted by everybody else, but he's holding his own. And like I said, if we just have more people saying what this professor is saying, then we can actually make some differences.
Sit here and say, oh, Hamas are angels that came from the sky and they came here to save everybody on planet Earth. But I'm also not going to sit here and be like the IDF isn't a terrorist organization. So I think this goes.
So he's calling, that's why the word terror, like he's willing to call the IDF terrorist, but he's not willing to call Hamas terrorist. Like, what does the word even mean if you're not going to call, you see what I'm saying? It's just, obviously he has a bias and he's whatever. It's absurd.
Goes online, people are going to have a dialogue and we're actually going to get closer to the truth. But when the
All
thing
right,
is
let me read the Quran.
Go ahead.
Are you an
Quran.
Yeah, that's why.
This is the Quran, right?
Which eye?
Chapter 9. Fight against those who have been given the scripture as believe not in Allah nor the last day, and forbid not that which Allah hath forbidden by his messenger, and follow not the religion of truth. Now pay attention. Until they pay the tribute.
Wait, you said chapter 9.
Until they pay the tribute, wait for it, readily, being brought low. Being
What
brought
verse?
low.
What verse? What verse?
Subdued.
You have an
This
Arabic?
is chapter 9. What is that?
You have an Arabic? He's talking about this one.
Oh my God.
So there you have it. It's right there in...
Right, it was in the video that I showed earlier. So it showed the verse right there. I had to click out of it, but if you rewind this video, you'll see I posted the verse earlier. It says it. It's right there. It's so you see this guy, either he's lying that he doesn't know about it, or he's, I guess I never heard of that one before.
In
Verse,
your
that's 29,
Quran,
right? Verse 29?
until you are paying the tax and brought low. That is submission. That is submission. I don't want to submit. I'm not going to submit to Sharia law. I'm not a Muslim. I'm a proud Jew. I'm also an American. I believe in freedom of religion. All right? So,
Guys,
what do you have to say?
oh my God. So this is what happens when you look at people like Ben Shapiro and people that like show up on Piers Morgan every other week and want to talk shit about the religion of Islam. If you literally go to the verse before, because obviously the Quran is meant to be read holistically, it says, verse 28, which is the verse that's right before. O you who have believed, indeed the polytheists, are Jews polytheists?
Oh, so only polytheists
Polytheists are unclean. So no, wait, I'm going to explain. So let them not approach al-Masjid al-Haram, which is Muslim lands. After this, their final year. And if you fear privation, Allah will enrich you from His bounty if He wills. Indeed, Allah is knowing and wise. And then we get to verse 29, which says, fight those who do not believe in Allah or in the last day, and who do not consider unlawful what Allah and His Messenger have made unlawful, and who do not adopt the religion of truth from those who were given the scripture. Fight until they give the jizya willingly while they are humbled. Now, if you go look at the context of this verse, the context of the verse is this was during the time of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was fighting against Quraysh. It has nothing to do with the Jews.
The Jews have historically paid the jizya. Like, this is factual, like, history. This guy's just denying history. Like, this is the way Jews were treated in Muslim countries. I've done entire videos on this, right? I talk about it here in, Rashida Tlaib wishes you a happy Hanukkah, right? We talk about specifically how Jews lived as, second-class Sharia dhimmi citizens. It's all there in this video. So if you want to get more information on that, here it is. And of course, this is a great graphic to see. So you built this, that was about 1,000 years old on the Holy Temple that is over 2,000 years old, when it stood over 2,000 years ago. And I'm the one occupying your land, right? This is the ugly mosque, the Dome of the Rock, or the Al-Aqsa, whatever it's called, that they decided to build on top of our holy temple, and then claim that they are so kind to us when they invited us back. And another instance of apartheid and submission and humiliation, very similar to the jizya. Build a mosque on your holy site and then say how kind you are to the people who you bring back. Yeah.
The Quran is meant to be read.
Where the Masjid Haram is?
It says that anyone who...
Masjid al-Haram is Muslim land.
Again, it says
which you said that Muslims have the right to govern.
second-class citizen.
But it's not talking about...
Yeah, Muslim lands, right? So he claims that Israel is a Muslim land. He calls it Palestine. So, yeah, he's speaking out of two sides of his mouth, but what's new?
Israel.
Again, let's keep it very simple. I don't want to follow Sharia law. I'm not a Muslim. I'm a Jew. I want to be allowed to live peacefully in my own land,
Which is in America.
Yeah, okay. If you have
as a Jew.
You pay taxes in America.
Palestinians?
What's that?
Do you believe Palestinians should
I
be
hope
peaceful?
Palestinians and Jews can get along with each other. My dream
Palestinians indigenous?
my
Wait,
dream
are
would be is that
Palestinians
me and him
indigenous?
could be friends and like hang out and just be okay with each other, and we can have a two-state solution. But you don't just want the West Bank, you want Tel Aviv, you want Haifa,
You want Syria, you want Jordan, you want Iraq.
So now this guy is literally like spreading some sort of Jewish conspiracy theory. That's not what Jews want. What is he even talking about? It's like... Yeah, so you should give this guy more attention, because he's clearly this is really how they think. They think about conspiracy theories. The other guy was like, keeping his cool. This is probably how he really thinks, but this guy's speaking the mind of everybody there, that they think that Jews are some sort of, wanting to do these things. I mean, this is literally, here's the irony too, is that these are lands that Muslims rule already, right? So, I mean, you've already conquered all those lands, Muslims. Like, that's, if you want to talk about a conspiracy, it would be that. They just want to take Israel too, along with all the other Middle Eastern countries that have Muslim sovereignty. So.
It says in your flag from the mountain.
I want Egypt.
Yes, you want Egypt. No. Until the Nile River. Not the whole Egypt, just the Nile River.
I support a two-state solution.
See, you see here, like, he's trying to propose, whether or not you think it's a practical idea or not, this professor is trying to propose a real idea that might, have some, at least it has some sort of level of attempt at equality. Not saying whether or not it's practical, but goodness, you see these other individuals do not, they don't care for the Jews.
My friend over here does not. He supports I'm talking to him.
What do I support? What do I support?
I asked you if you support the right of the Jewish people to exist in Israel as a Jewish state. He said no.
You know why?
He did not say he did not. I said
I
Muslims should have a right to live
That's not what I
safely and
said.
securely in Palestine.
It's fine. We have it on video. You don't have
So
to
I
look at what you
said
said.
that I, as a Muslim, not even as a Palestinian, as a Muslim, which is 90% of the Palestinian population, recognize.
He admits it. 90% of the Palestinian population. So who do you think is going to make decisions for quote-unquote Palestinian statehood if that hypothetically ever happened? Muslims. Extremist Muslims. Sharia law is going to happen. So Jews will not have autonomy in the land of Israel if a Palestinian state ever came to fruition under these types of extremist Muslims. That's the facts, and this guy knows that.
Jewish history inside of Palestine.
Right.
Recognize ethnic Jewish history inside of Palestine.
But you don't recognize the right of us to have a nation
Exclusive
of our
rights.
own.
You don't have the
That's not
exclusive
true.
right to
I don't.
our land.
So when we
Does
say
Saudi Arabia have a right to their own nation
They're
state?
indigenous.
Yes, you know why? Because they're from there.
They do.
Finally, this is the kicker. This is the kicker. Because he's pointing out the hypocrisy. Saudi Arabia, no Jews can go to Mecca and Medina, maybe on like a work permit or some nonsense, right? I heard somebody make that sort of argument. Jews do not live in Saudi Arabia. It is a Muslim sovereign state like no other, right? You want to talk about apartheid? Well, they don't have apartheid. You know why? Because they ethnically cleansed the Jews and the Christians from Saudi Arabia. And as we already said, this was happening all the way during the times of Muhammad, according to the Quran. This is where it comes from, right? When they kicked the Jews out of Medina. That was the first of this. And now you have an entire sovereign Muslim state of Saudi Arabia where only Muslims virtually live, right? Mecca and Medina. And Jews used to live in Medina. Jews used to probably also live in Mecca, but not anymore because Muhammad initially started kicking them out, and eventually it just came, obviously it was not a hospitable land to Jews or Christians. So there you go. You want to talk about apartheid, ethnic cleansing, genocide, all that rhetoric that they try to use against Israel, you can apply that tenfold to Saudi Arabia.
But the Jewish people don't. So Saudi Arabia has a right to their own nation state as a Muslim state, but the Jewish people do not.
No, countries.
Because you're not exclusive. You have Christians and Jews in Arabia. Not exclusive.
Saudi Arabia is exclusive.
Saudi Arabia treats Christians and Jews with equal rights.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
They don't. You know why? Because they don't live there. So notice how the video clips here, right? Because they're losing. So actually, this video has more of the integrity, I think, as opposed to this one. This one here cuts out at a certain point, and it's very interesting because in this debate, there's a certain point in the video where he's giving the professor's making a point that's really, really good, and then they cut, and you'll see when that point happens here. But I need to skip this part because this is a separate conversation with that man. But just a second, let's...
Mindset.
Have a good day.
That's all I needed to hear.
Hulu ad, which was so disgusting,
God.
which was like, oh, Gaza, it could have been a paradise if they just
All right,
didn't
can I ask
elect
a question?
Hamas. If they didn't elect Hamas. If only there was a part of Palestine that didn't elect Hamas. Oh wait, it's the West Bank.
I have a
Oh wait, the
question.
West Bank where I live, my family got kicked out. They had to be refugees. They had to go to Venezuela. It's the only reason why I can speak even a lick of Spanish. It was because they were forced to. They were also. I also have family members that went to Chile and that went to Puerto Rico, and it's so sad because the whole creation of Israel they talk about because we were running, and I agree. The Jews have been running for hundreds of thousands of years, and that is a disgusting thing, and that shouldn't have happened.
Obviously, he just meant thousands of years, not hundreds of thousands of years. But anyway, watch him cry the crocodile tears.
But in an attempt to basically stop themselves from running, what they did is they created a whole nother diaspora of people that are also indigenous to
As
that
a
land.
refugee, people don't talk about this, but there were about 800,000 Jews that were thrown out of Muslim Arab countries. My best friend, his parents are Egyptian Jewish. They were forcibly expelled from Egypt. Their home was taken. in the early,
It's fine.
I believe, early 1950s.
I have a question.
They were forcibly expelled from Egypt.
What part of Egypt?
Their money was not, their bank accounts were seized. So
Okay.
there were hundreds of thousands of Jewish refugees from Muslim countries
So
as
two wrongs
well.
make a right.
No. So
What happened first?
Let me just.
You guys killed the
I gotta
Palestinians.
run, but let me end with this.
Okay, of course, you always
Your
run.
What happened first? See, they don't want to hear the history. The Jews were, I mean, they're literally shooting themselves in the foot because they're saying how wonderful Jews lived in Muslim lands. And now you see that Jews don't live in Muslim lands. It's not because they loved living in Muslim lands. It's because they didn't like living in Muslim lands and they left and they went to Israel or America or someplace that treated them better. It's that simple.
Palestinian, I'm Jewish. Wouldn't it be better for both of us? Like, we're killing each other.
Yeah,
right?
we were good. It was
Right?
called Palestine.
We're killing each
Right.
other.
No, we're not killing each other.
Can
You
we
guys are killing
just
us.
figure out a way.
October 7th never happened. No, it was all justified because of 1948. The Farhud never happened because Jews were treated amazingly well in Iraq, and the Farhud wasn't a pogrom during the time of the Holocaust, and Muslims treated us so amazingly, and that's why we all stayed in Muslim countries. Stop with this nonsense that you're the victim and that the Jews are oppressing the poor Palestinians and that there's no back and forth and that the Jews are just these using this reverse Holocaust rhetoric, and then you don't hold Saudi Arabia to the same standard, and then you excuse collective punishment for the Muslim countries against the Jews. Stop with it. Like, just stop.
To get along.
It's very simple.
And
It's very simple. Lift up blockade of
that might
Gaza.
mean, wait a minute.
Bomb dropping.
Wait. That might mean not getting everything I want, not getting everything you want, but sharing the land and just having two countries.
It is shared.
Is that what's happening? Is that what's happening?
And a Jewish country.
It's easy for you to
And
say
again,
that when
you're
you
not
have
gonna
the
get
odds
everything
on
you
your
want.
side.
I'm not going to get everything I want, but at least we can have peace.
So Malcolm X had a saying that said, if the white man takes his hand off of something about, like, if the white man stabbed him and they simply, took the knife out of their body, they did not do justice because there's still the wound inside of their chest.
So this is a very interesting statement that I'm going to hold him to, right? So just as Muhammad, right, kicked the Jews out of Medina, right? So he stabbed us, killed our people, took the women for his, enslaved the children and took wives from the people that he killed, right? The Jews in Medina. So he stabbed us, right? And then later he's going to say that Umar al-Khattab or whatever, whoever let the Jews back to Israel or whatever, he's going to say, we let you back to Israel with open arms after we planted this mosque on top of your holy temple. We're so kind to you. Yeah, that's an example of putting the knife inside of us, taking it out, and then saying, look how kind we are to you. Please cower down to us and let us rule you, and you can be our dhimmi Sharia apartheid citizens, and you're a holy land of Israel. So, yeah, if you use that same analogy of Malcolm X and apply it to the way that Muslims have treated the Jews since the times of Muhammad, then I would agree wholeheartedly that, we're not going to let you get away with stabbing us and pulling the knife out and claiming that you are just in your Sharia dhimmi law system that you claim you want to rule over us in our own holy land of Israel that pre-exists Muhammad by over 1,000 years. I agree wholeheartedly. Let's see what he comes up with.
So when you sit here come over here and you say, we can negotiate, you guys can have half, we can have half.
Yeah.
I will be willing to debate with someone about, for example, what solution should be, but there is something that, especially being on a campus where we're meant to be educated, something that should not be debated is the history. And the thing is, when we look at the history, when you look at the history of what Zionism is, and then you look collectively at the history.
Judaism.
Okay, I let you finish your point.
Zionism is Judaism.
I let you finish your point.
It's not. Look, I read it 1,000 times. It says explicitly that Literally, Zion and Jerusalem are virtually synonymous according to the book of Isaiah chapter 2, verse 3. Read it. Read Zechariah chapter 8, right? You can read it in the Psalms. You can read it. It's all over. This is where it comes from. It wasn't made up by Theodore Herzl. It was in the Bible. That's why Jerusalem is where it is today. That's why Zionism is synonymous with the idea of Jews going back. It's biblical. It's a part of our religion. Too bad you don't get to define our religion for us. You just don't.
You said that Judaism can be ethnic.
You've been doing most of the talking, I think.
Can I ask you?
Right, but the point. Wait, let me finish this point real quick. So I say that to say that me as a Palestinian and most Palestinians do not agree with the existence of Israel as a nation state. However, we at the same time say that Palestine as a state, when it exists, because Jews say that we want a land that we can live freely, we can live in peace and all this stuff, which they deserve. Guess what? That already existed. It's Palestine. Now, this is a point of contention that me and you have been having for the past hour, and I appreciate you having the ability to talk about it. Now, granted, you haven't been able to address a lot of my claims, but at least we had the conversation. So that's what we believe in. Now, I hope that when everybody goes home, it is so important for allies of Palestine. A lot of professors on CUNY, even on the Palestinian side, will say, "Oh, you should not have a conversation with Zionists. You should not have a conversation with even Jews sometimes because they're always."
So he's admitting that it's not just about Zionism; it's about Jews. Obviously he's trying to argue the opposite, but what it shows is that this is the overwhelming idea. Like, even professors at CUNY are saying, don't talk to Jews because Jews are a bunch of liars or whatever. And, that's basically what it is. It's not, don't pretend like this is about, Zionism is some separate entity from what Jews are, because we like I said, it's, if you're a practicing Jew and you understand the yearning to go back to Israel to, effectively have Jerusalem as their holy site, that's Zionism, whether or not you agree with the Israeli government or not. That's what it is. It's part of our religion.
Always out to get you. No, you have a responsibility that if you guys are willing to have the energy to come out and protest, to go home and educate yourself. Palestinians are not against the Jewish right of return. We are not against this ideology that Jews have to be kicked out. No, relax. It's the exact opposite.
If we live under Sharia
Muslims will tell you.
There he goes. That was awesome. The professor is explaining, you can see how this guy is presenting this and packaging this in a way that sounds palatable, but he wants Sharia law. You heard the whole conversation. Now, here's the interesting thing. I'm going to show you a clip from this other video here where the same exact, let's start here. Check it out. I'm going to start in the clip close to where it was.
Muslims will tell you when Umar ibn al-Khattab came, there was no Jews living in Jerusalem because the Christians killed all of them. The Byzantines killed all of them. Umar ibn al-Khattab told his Jewish companion that converted to Islam, he said, go back to Saudi Arabia. I want you to get me 80 Jewish families and bring them to Jerusalem. Because why? Because Jerusalem is not complete without the Jews. Who said that? An Arab.
All right.
Oh, wow. So an Arab, just like Muhammad, who kicked the Jews out of Medina, according to Al-Hashir 59:2, and collectively punished us and ultimately kicked us out of our homes, right? Destroyed our homes. This wasn't even in Israel. This was when we were living in Saudi Arabia. We were already exiled. We were already kicked out by the Romans. And then Muhammad decided to rub it in our face even more by kicking us out of the land that we were exiled to. What a saint. Disgusting. And then you have this. Once again, this is what this Al-Khattab individual did. He built a mosque on top of our holy site and then had the audacity to claim, well, look how peaceful we are. Look how amazing we are. Live as our apartheid dhimmi citizens in your own holy land that we built a mosque on top of to show that we're going to subdue you, not just with the jizya, but even with our own religious authority, taking it away from you. That's what it's like to live in Muslim lands. And that's what this individual wants for Israel under a Palestinian one-state apartheid dhimmi Sharia law country. Don't mistake it for anything else. And this professor did a wonderful job at exposing that hypocrisy. But watch this. This is not the same video we were watching. Check it out.
The same Arabs that only can live.
Oh, sorry. This is the same. This is the different video. This is the fiery debate between the Palestinian protesters. Now, this is different from the video that I was initially playing from. And we're going to replay the clip, and you're going to see where he got cut off.
Even open sewage.
Can I reply?
So that's basically what I'm trying to say.
Let's get it very simple. I asked him a simple question. And by the way, I appreciate that he stood here with me and had this discussion. And I hope that we can have more of these. I think dialogue is good. I tell my students all the time, get a diversity of ideas.
Do you agree that Israel is...
Did you see the clip ended there, right? So it didn't let him finish in this video here. So this video here is a smaller clip of the version, and this is a pro-Palestinian individual, obviously, John Farina, whoever it was. Not good journalism in any way, shape, or form. Biased completely. Didn't even give this guy, the professor, an opportunity for a closing statement and just cut away. Why? Because he's threatened by what the professor's going to say. Let's watch this unedited by Status Quo News.
Tell you, when Umar ibn al-Khattab came, there was no Jews living in Jerusalem because the Christians killed all of them. The Byzantines killed all of them. Umar ibn al-Khattab told his Jewish companion that converted to Islam, he said, go back to Saudi Arabia. I want you to get me 80 Jewish families and bring them to Jerusalem. Because why? Because Jerusalem is not complete without the Jews. Who said?
So remember his Malcolm X statement, right? Muhammad stuck the sword inside the Jews, kicked us out of Medina, and then this Al-Khattab individual took it out. Now we're supposed to be like, this is justice? No. This is not justice. That's apartheid. That's genocide. All the things you want to claim about Israel, Muhammad and your Muslim caliphates did to the Jews. You want to say Europe was worse? Fine. But don't pretend like you're some sort of saint in the idea, or Muhammad was, or any of this type of stuff. Of course you will. Muhammad could do the most horrible thing in the world and you wouldn't care. But hey, whatever. Your Malcolm X comment about somebody sticking a sword in you and then taking it out and then claiming justice, I think it rings true with the way that the Muslims have treated the Jews. We don't owe you anything. You've treated us terribly throughout the millennium. So yeah, we're going to take our holy land of Israel that predates your Muslim religion by over 1,000 years, and we're going to go back to our own golden age where we were ruling under an autonomous theocracy, and that's what it's going to be. The golden age for the Jews was not living under Muslim lands. It was when we lived in Jerusalem, we had a holy temple standing, and we had our own autonomy. That's what we want.
That in Arab.
All right.
The same Arabs that only can live in open sewage.
Can I reply?
So that's basically what I'm trying to say.
Let's get it very simple. I asked him a simple question. And by the way, I appreciate that he stood here with me and had this discussion. And I hope that we can have more of these. I think dialogue is good. I tell my students all the time, get a diversity of ideas. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to him. Get a wide.
But also have closed-door CUNY campus, CUNY campus.
So this part of the video you didn't get to see here, right? Because he cut it off and went, all the way to here, right? We just heard this clip where he was talking about this, and then it cut.
I tell my students, get a diversity of ideas.
Do you agree that Israel...
See? Because whatever he's going to say here is clearly something that this pro-Palestinian individual didn't want to be shown, so he edited it out. So let's see his final statement on this.
Events.
No, I was not allowed in either today. It actually was full. I literally was
there were Arab students that RSVP that were not.
I RSVP'd, I could not get in. But anyway, I always tell my students, get a diversity of ideas. Don't believe me, don't believe him. Get a wide diversity of ideas from other sources. So let me just finish. I want to just respond to him. In closing, I asked this gentleman, do you support the right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state? He said no. And he was honest about that, so I appreciate that. But that is the problem. If you do not accept the right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state, well, how can we have peace? If you don't accept the right of my people to exist freely and safely in my land of Israel, which is what Zionism is, how can you have peace with that? You can't. And I also said Saudi Arabia has a Muslim land, a Muslim country. There are many Muslim countries, and they should be Muslim. But I said, can you please extend to me the same courtesy that the Jewish people should have our own state? And he said no. So I think that's the problem. I hope, this is just a hope and a prayer. I know a lot of us believe in God. I believe in God. You believe in God. I hope that we can figure out how to have peace.
You believe in God, but you also believe in
because killing each other for years and
Theodore
years.
Herzl didn't believe in God.
It's not each other. It's actually
Theodore Herzl didn't believe in Hashem.
So who cares? Why do these people think that Theodore Herzl invented Zionism? That's the issue. And I think that the one thing that I would have... So I'm glad that the professor mentioned that Zionism is Judaism. The thing is, we also need to provide the sources for this. And I think that that's the only thing I think I would add to the presentation is that, yeah, let's demonstrate that Zion is a part of our religion, and let's use scripture to demonstrate that. Yeah, that's really the only thing I would add to the discussion. I think this professor did a fantastic, wonderful job. You can watch this full video yourself. I think, you know, and you can do the comparison. You know, the fiery debate video obviously was heavily edited and, you know, was presented in a very, you know, misleading way. I don't even think they talked about the Sharia law hardly at all because they wanted to keep that away from the public, you know, because obviously if people who actually care about religious equality heard that, they would have to sing a different tune and actually stand with Israel, because clearly the Sharia law that this Palestinian individual in the video was trying to espouse, it's not something that objectively is better than what we have going in Israel today, where Jews, Muslims, and Christians can all worship freely in Jerusalem to some degree, right? Contrast that with Saudi Arabia, like this professor is saying. Like, you can't tell me that Saudi Arabia is some sort of, you know, not apartheid, not ethnically cleansed state of Jews and Christians, and then at the same time claim that Israel is, you know, the most horrible place in the world for, you know, in the Middle East, and that they're so horrible to people. I mean, just look at this. I did this in the video. Rashida Tlaib wishes you a happy Hanukkah. Is this equality? Is this equality? These were the Jews. These are the numbers, you know. What is it? Like, it's showing like more recent years in 2017, 2019 versus 1948, right? You want to claim that all this happened because of Zionism? Okay, collective punishment. All these Arab lands collectively punish the Jews for having a state in Israel. Okay, don't whine about Gazans being quote-unquote collectively punished if you're not going to use the same standard to say that the Jews were collectively punished in Muslim lands for simply the state of Israel existing. Right. And like I said, in 1941, the Farhud happened. That was during the Holocaust. That was during the Holocaust, before the state of Israel. So you have no excuse. Anyway, I hope this video has been a blessing to you all. Shalom Aleichem.